Ali Velshi hits the nail on the head. He excoriates the Republicans, he excoriates the president, and he talks about a special stench. Check this out and let's take it on the other side.
One of the hallmarks of our democratic system is the commitment to the peaceful transition of power. That hallmark has been tested this last month, but at the heart of the peaceful transition of power is the notion that there is just one president at a time. And it's clear right now that we have one president. It's just that it's not the man in the White House. Donald Trump has given up. He stopped governing. In fact, the entire Trump administration and Republicans writ large seem to have given up. They're paralyzed by their dear leader, who can't be bothered to do anything but whine and complain and lie about his increasingly obvious election loss. And their collective refusal to accept the results of a free and fair election is having dire consequences. It goes beyond the big picture damage to our democratic institutions, which should not be diminished. In the abdication of governance, there are actual lives at stake. State and local election officials, including a few rare Republicans, have begged the outgoing president to stop his election lies. Officials are actually facing death threats. Their relatives are facing death threats, but he hasn't stopped. Trump continues to lie. Consequences be damned. And he hasn't stopped because no one's really trying all that hard to stop him. Where are congressional Republicans? Where are Senate Republicans? Where are state and national Republicans? Some of them are brazenly standing behind Trump. A tiny few have spoken out about his antics, often because they are themselves the brunt of his attacks. But most remain silent while coronavirus rips through this country and the president won't even say its name. Silence on the pandemic starts at the top. The outgoing president hasn't talked about the record daily new case numbers. He hasn't talked about the record daily new hospitalizations or, on the right of the screen, the record new daily deaths. He often talks about coronavirus as a thing that doesn't result in death. Tell that to the 2,500 people dying a day this week. In fact, almost no Republicans have talked about this. And their silence is an admission of their guilt, an admission that their inaction with this president may be responsible for the deaths of Americans who believed Trump's lies and, by extension, their lies about the virus, about it going away, about it not being all that contagious, about not needing masks. They supported a denier because they thought it was good politics, or they didn't follow science, or both, and people died. As of tonight, 279,303 Americans have died from the coronavirus. How many lives could have been saved if Republicans stood up? How many lives could have been saved if Republicans stopped the lies? How many lives could have been saved if Republicans cared more about their constituents than about their reelection? Because this is not about their constituents. It's just about them and their power and their all-encompassing desire to keep that power. The man in the White House has said nothing about the new distressing job that just came out. A recovery is happening, and it's helping some people immensely, and others not at all. 700,000 Americans have been filing for unemployment insurance claims every week for 37 weeks. Plus, 20 million people are still on the pre-pandemic unemployment rolls. This is unheard of. So what does the man in the Oval Office do? He said nothing about that dire report. Congressional Republicans were almost uniformly silent on the jobs report. But it makes sense when you think about it. For months, Mitch McConnell has blocked relief to those in need, relief that passed the House on October the 1st. And the man in the White House has said nothing about the need for relief in weeks. 13.4 million people are on pandemic unemployment programs that expire at the end of December. He doesn't care about that. He was never even part of negotiations to get another round of relief to Americans in need. He made a point of saying he wasn't going to participate. So why should we expect anything different? Unlike a real president, the man in the White House will let Mitch McConnell do whatever he wants. He doesn't care about negotiations. He doesn't seem to care about Americans. He's not a real president, and he never was. A real president doesn't ignore death threats to election officials or COVID records or the tens of millions of Americans in need just because he lost an election. The man sitting in the White House might not accept his loss, but he has abdicated his responsibilities, and his Republican enablers allowed him to. And it's the crux of a new piece from Susan Glasser in The New Yorker. The president is acting crazy, so why are we shrugging it off? Glasser argues that now is not the time to get complacent or to dismiss the president's insane behavior because far too much is at stake. Susan Glasser writes, quote, "The temptation is to look away, to move on, to cringe, and avert your gaze. That is exactly what Republicans in the Senate who have stood by Trump through impeachment and other ignominies have done this week, pivoting so seamlessly into bashing the new Biden administration that they never even stopped to acknowledge its existence. We can't look away. We can't allow the severe damage that's been done to be swept under the rug. Republicans, you are culpable. The man in the White House will ultimately diminish in importance. Your party will have to find an identity, maybe even one based on ideology rather than fealty to one flawed man. But for those of you Republicans who are hoping to rebuild and wash off the stench of Trump, you should know this. You will be remembered for your silence. You will be remembered for being complicit in one man's attempts to take down the country you profess to love. We do have just one president at a time. That's the design of our great democracy. In this case, America's real president just isn't in the Oval Office yet.
Tried, judged, and convicted. Is there anyone else that has deconstructed the president's response to the COVID pandemic, the president's response to the economic crash, the GOP's complicity in what has happened to Americans, the deaths of Americans, the millions of maimed Americans? No one has had the courage to do that. This is the type of reporting that should be done, should have been done from March going forward. Do you think 74 million Americans would have voted for Donald Trump had they explicitly understood the complicity both of Donald Trump and the Republicans? Do you think that Republicans would have picked up any House seats if they really understood where the genesis of the problem, the genesis of our economic disaster, what caused it? Not a chance. Great job by Ali Velshi in the deconstruction of the complete dereliction of duty by both the president and his party, the Republican Party. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.